have 27 cars in my car sharing fleet made up of low-end to mid-tier economy cars. And with these cars, I predominantly rent to local renters who are needing a car that's affordable that can get them from point A to point B. And this business model has worked really well for me over the years. And for this year in 2023, my husband HP and I set the goal of getting to 35 cars throughout the year. And while unfortunately it doesn't look like we're going to hit that goal, we are still actively and relatively aggressively expanding our fleet on a month-by-month basis. And so in this video, I want to break down some of the different cars that I am still looking to buy for not only 2023, but also the foreseeable future. And I'm also going to be talking about some of the ones that I'm no longer buying and why this is the case. So let's get started. The first car that HP and I are looking to buy, and this is actually one that goes outside of our normal formula. In fact, in many ways, it is the exact opposite of the standard car that we buy for our Turo fleet, and that is a Ford Expedition Max. This Ford Expedition Max will be an example of a car that HP and I want for personal reasons, and we're using Turo as a way to justify this purchase. Now, the Ford Expedition Max that we're looking to buy would be a 2018, something with around 100,000 miles for around $30,000, and it must have the bench seat in the middle, not the captain's chairs. And this is a car that we will be financing, unlike the vast majority of our other vehicles, and we are most likely going to be financing it through a credit union. That way we can ensure that we get the best rate possible. Now, when it comes to why we're looking to buy a Ford Expedition Max, there are a few different reasons. Number one is tax reasons. There is a huge benefit to buying a large car like a Ford Expedition Max by the end of the year because of the Section 179 tax code, which is actually going to be decreasing next year. So there's an added benefit to actually buy this car between now and December rather than in January. For that reason, we are looking to expedite this purchase to get the full tax benefit. Number two is diversification. We feel as though this is going to fill an important need in our market, and it's something that none of our other cars fill. There are a lot of people out there that need a 7 or 8 passenger vehicle because they have a large family. And these types of renters, well, they don't really have a lot of options out there, and the ones that are out there are very, very expensive. So finding a more affordable option in this XL vehicle space, I think that this is a real need, and I think that this vehicle can have a lot of demand because of that. Third is a high price to daily rate ratio. This is a car that I would classify as a high perceived value vehicle, similar to our Maserati Ghibli that we had in 2021. We can buy this car for $30,000, and we can probably rent this car for between $80 to $100 per day, and during high demand times like the holidays, we can rent it for even more. This is a great daily rate whenever you look at other vehicles that are priced in this same price range. And last but not least is for personal reasons. My sister, who I'm very close to, has 2 very young daughters. I like to be able to go places with her, and we have quickly realized that all of our vehicles that we use for personal use are no longer accommodating myself, my sister, her kids, HP, and my other family members. So to be able to have an XL SUV that we can use whenever we need it, and we can use Turo to justify the payments, it is a win-win situation. We have not purchased this car yet, but once we do, I will keep you guys updated. One car that we are no longer going to be buying come January 1st, 2024 is going to be Ford Focuses. If you guys have seen my channel before, or if you've seen my vlog channel that I have with my husband, you probably know that I love 2011 model year Ford Focuses, and this year in particular has been a year that we have really put a heavy focus on finding Focuses. I have 4 Ford Focuses in my fleet. Well, I guess technically 3 because we just recently had one totaled. These cars are great. They're cheap, they're reliable, and renters really like them. But on January 1st, 2024, 2011 Ford Focuses will no longer be eligible on the Turo platform because of the 12-year rule. But because of the fact that Turo does have a grandfather policy, our 2011 Ford Focuses can actually stay on the platform, but at that point we won't be able to add any new ones. While the oldest car that anyone will be able to add, with the exception of classics, will be a 2012 year model, and unfortunately 2012 is whenever Ford changed the engine and transmission and build of the Ford Focus, and it went from being a really bulletproof, reliable car to being an absolute trash one. And so unfortunately, once 2023 comes to an end, so will our search for Ford Focuses, and we will no longer be looking for or buying these cars to add them to our Turo fleet. But on the same note, a type of car that we have been actively looking for, in fact, we are always looking for these types of cars, is a dirt cheap car that can be rented out for an extremely cheap price. I'm talking something that you can buy at a cheap enough price to where you can actually justify renting out that same car for around $25 per day. We have one car in our current fleet that fits this description. The car is our 2007 Ford Focus. We purchased this car for $2,300 years ago, and currently it averages about $800 a month, but over the summer it had its best best month ever where it actually made $1,400 in 1 month. This car is rented out all the time. From a utilization perspective, this car is one of our best performers. And this car is great. I absolutely love it. Sure, it's not a looker, but it is absolutely bulletproof maintenance-wise. It is incredibly reliable and it's cheap, which people love. Because this Ford Focus was so cheap and we've had it so long that it's made its money back time and time and time again, we are actually able to price this car at an extremely low rate. In fact, I believe that this car is pretty much in the bottom tier of the cheapest cars in the entire DFW market. And because of the fact that this car only cost $2,300 to buy, we're able to justify this extremely low price point. Obviously, if you buy a car that costs anywhere between $5,000 and $7,000, you're not going to be able to have a car that's priced at $25 per day because it's just not going to make sense mathematically. But if you can find a car that does cost you between $2,500 and $3,000 to purchase, you can actually get this car and rent it out for a bottom price. That way you can get an insane amount of demand with this car. But obviously, you have to find the right car for this type of arrangement. HP and I actually found a similar car to this a few months ago, where we found a car that was priced at $3,000. We knew that we would have to get it repainted and we'd have to have some minor maintenance work done, but we knew that if we could buy this car for about $2,300, it would be worth it to buy and then price that car for around $25 per day on Turo. But unfortunately, this seller wouldn't budge on the price, and as a result, we passed on the deal. I think that if you can find those dirt cheap cars that have good bones but may have some cosmetic issues, I think that these are cars that are incredibly good to buy. They're not going to be cars that are going to be making $50, $60, $70 per day, but you would be surprised at how much these cheap cars make and how quickly they can make their ROI back. For this reason, these types of cars are ones I'm always looking for, I'm always willing to jump on, but they are extremely difficult to find. Another car that we are scaling back on is the Toyota Yaris. Yes, my beloved Toyota Yaris. I love Toyota Yaris so much that I have one back on my shelf, right next to my Taylor Swift sign, because both Taylor Swift and Toyota Yarises have been important figures in my life. Don't get me wrong, I am still a huge fan of Toyota Yarises, and I feel like whenever you talk about a budget reliable car, Toyota Yarises for the most part can't be beat. And if I had to buy myself a bulletproof car on a budget, a Toyota Yaris would no doubt be the car that I would choose. But the problem with the Toyota Yaris comes down to guest perception as well as the cost of the actual car and then the daily rate that you can rent this car out for. Yarises are very expensive. We bought a four-door Yaris relatively recently for $6,500, and this was considered to be a really good deal. Back in the day, you could buy a pretty decent Toyota Yaris for between $2,000 and $3,000, and today, the same Yarises that were costing $2,500, $3,000 5 years ago are now costing $5,000 to $6,000. You really can find a solid Toyota Yaris for less than $6,000, and newer ones are even more expensive. And the problem with Toyota Yarises is that they are very outdated. Their interior is outdated, they sometimes don't have basic features like automatic locks and windows, and they just really aren't a great bang for your buck. And I've found that because of the outdatedness of these vehicles, they don't rent as well as they used to, and they don't rent as well as some other cars in a similar price range. For example, our $6,500 Hyundai Sonata rents significantly better and makes more money than our $6,500 Toyota Yaris. And from a reliability standpoint, the experience has been relatively similar between the two cars. Now, I do think newer Toyota Yarises, like 2014 or newer, look really good. Toyota kind of solved all of the complaints here. The car looks sharp, it has more modern features, but you do have to pay an arm and a leg for it. I've said it on my channel before, but I sort of view the Mazda 2 as a budget-friendly Toyota Yaris alternative. Sure, they don't have Toyota-level reliability, but they are reliable and they are much cheaper than Toyota Yaris. Toyota Yarises are one of those cars that I will always be looking for loosely. I will do a Toyota Yaris search every few days to see if I find one that is a stellar deal, but it isn't a car that I am actively honing in on and going out of my way to look for specifically. While these are great cars and I will always be an advocate for the Toyota Yaris, I think that when we are talking about Turo and the ROI that you can make from a Turo car, there are simply better options out there and better performers all the way around. Another car that we are actively looking for, in fact, as I record this video, we're actually going to go look at one this afternoon, and that is a Mazda 5. Now, for those of you who don't know what a Mazda 5 is, a Mazda 5 is basically a mini minivan. These cars are great. They have a much smaller footprint than a traditional minivan and thus a much smaller price point, but they still fit 7 people. In fact, I think that a Mazda 5 has to be one of the smallest 7-seater vehicles on the market today. We have one Mazda 5 currently in our fleet. It performs extremely well, and we've been looking for a new one pretty much as soon as we listed our original one on the Turo platform. But like all Turo vehicles, in order to make a car worth buying, you have to make sure to find it at the right price, and whenever I've been looking for Mazda 5s, I have found that they are in general overpriced, and as a result, we haven't added any additional ones to our fleet, but we are consistently looking. The reason why I like Mazda 5 is I feel like it kind of covers all of your bases for a Turo guest, especially whenever you're targeting local renters like we do. You're able to target those families that need multiple seats. You're targeting that individual person because the car isn't overly large. In fact, whenever we look at our guests that rent our Mazda 5, we have found that it is pretty much an even split of individuals who are just looking for a budget ride versus the families that actually are renting this car because they need multiple seats, which I found to be very, very interesting because I know that whenever we look at the major rental car companies throughout the United States, minivans are one of those cars that are very niche. Minivans typically only target families. You're not going to get that single traveler renting this type of car, but we have found that that isn't the case, and we do get a lot of both types of renters. On the same topic of a minivan, we are also looking for regular minivans as well, for example, Toyota Siennas or Honda Odysseys. These are cars that, again, I think fill a really important need in the market. The problem with these cars is finding ones that are in good shape at a reasonable price. And currently in the car market, it is really impossible to find, which is why we are instead looking for Mazda 5s rather than your traditional minivan. But there you guys have it. These are some of the cars that we are looking to buy. We are, of course, on top of these vehicles looking for Hyundais, which perform extremely well, as well as just Mazdas as a whole. Those are two types of makes that we are pretty much looking across the spectrum for those cars. We currently have a Mazda 5, two Mazda 2s, and two Mazda 3s, and we also have a Hyundai Elantra, two Hyundai Sonatas, and a Hyundai Tucson, and I have found that both of these makes and these different models perform extremely well on Turo. So on top of all the ones that I discussed in this video, we are also looking for those vehicles as well. Remember that if you are interested in learning more about how we look for our cars, how we maintain them, and how we manage our car sharing fleet, I do have a course, the Car Sharing Masterclass. You can check a link down in the description below. But like always, you guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, comments, if you have anything to add, I would love to hear it. So make sure to leave a comment down below. And while you guys are at it, make sure to hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit that notification bell. And I will see you guys in the next video.